So go ahead.
Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of Helping Parents Heal meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with our children who've passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us tonight. And thank you, Farah, for being here.
Oh, I can't imagine not being here. Hi.
Yes, thank you, Farah. We need to introduce you first, though, just a very short bio. And then I'd like to just tell a little bit about what this book is about. So first of all, she is obviously a huge supporter of Helping Parents Heal. I just feel so grateful that she's been a huge part of our conferences. She's always available to be able to help out. She's such a huge bright light, and we feel so grateful that she is a part of our organization, but she's also very, very talented. And if any of you have ever come to a gallery reading, you know how talented she is. Farah's the type of person who takes off her shoes. She goes straight to the person who she wants to talk to, not at the conference because it's difficult because she's mic'd up and she's up on stage, but during our gallery readings at Unity of Phoenix, she's always done that, and she does it because she truly is able to go directly to the person that she's wanting to speak to because their kids are letting her know. She began to give specific messages to people here in the physical world from their loved ones in heaven in her late teens. She remembers watching television as a teen and seeing Sylvia Browne and John Edwards on their shows, and she thought to herself, whatever disease John and Sylvia have, I must also have. That made her feel normal because they were the first people she had seen who shared the same ability as she did. She now realizes that in important times, she was able to deliver important life-saving messages. And you can learn more about her or book a session by visiting www.faragibson.com. I just wanted to quickly let you know what Farah wanted to do when she wrote this book, because she explained it in the paragraph that she sent before. Living a life without your child in the physical presence is no longer going to be about living without them. Through this book, I'm going to help you to learn to live with them. What if I could teach you that your child is still very much with you? What if I can help you to feel your child at your side in all that you do? What if I can give you assurance that you will absolutely see your child again in heaven? I feel as though the more we know about heaven and life after life in heaven, the less we fear. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to beautiful Fara Gibson. This is just an incredible book. We're so excited that you're here. And if you could possibly just start by telling us the reason that you wrote this book, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, this book was a heaven request, and any of you that know me know that I cuss a little bit. And I was literally um given that request by heaven directly that needed to write a book for the parents, and my response was, you got to be effing kidding me, right? Because I knew that that request was so profound. And in my head, as I'm getting that request, I'm just thinking of all the subjects that would have to be covered, every single subject. There are so many different types of passings or physical loss when it comes to having a child. And I knew that with this book, I was going to have to cover every single one of them. And we were going to start with, soul planning, and the reason behind, the reason that we live a life, in the first place. Like, why are we here when heaven's so perfect? Why would we leave heaven for this? Because this, if everybody says heaven's so perfect, that's a question in everybody's mind. And so really to put a foundation to that, and then start at the beginning, at the basics, where we have loss through miscarriage, and we have loss through, let's say it, abortions, we have loss through babies born sleeping, or babies born sick and, only living a few days, or, the transition of life can be, so many different things. And so I felt like it was going to be important to really try to cover everything: addiction, tragedy, suicide, every single possible, disability, again, children with illness, all of those things. And then I realized, when people are reading this book, they're like, this is really a book that anybody could read. And you could read it from the perspective of any type of loss that you've walked through in life. This book was going to need to be profound to reach the hearts that needed the most mending. And so I really did try to include everything.
Wonderful. Yes, and you did. And so tell us a little bit about the writing experience of this book, because this wasn't at all the time period that you were planning to write a book,
I
obviously.
didn't. So I did not plan on writing a book at this point, and I kind of made jokes like, what do you want to put out? The poetry book, because so many people have said, put a poetry book out. And when heaven asked for this book, and I was like, wow. And my husband and I were going to Aruba, and I still didn't have the book completely finished. And I was trying to get the last of it written. And so I'm on my trip in Aruba, and I'm writing the rest of this book, and I'm trying to get it launched back and forth between the people that are editing it. I'm sending one chapter at a time to the person, and I finally get it wrapped up. And I am literally writing, you guys, most of the time that I'm in Aruba. And my husband's like, are we going to hang out? And I'm like, we're hanging out. But and then I got it done, and I was so excited to get it done. And I was like literally at a Farah moment, and I was like, all right, God, if this book is what you need it to be, and if these kids, if everything, is as it should be to represent these kids and their love for their parents, like, give me a sign. And I didn't post this on Facebook, and I'm not posting it everywhere, but I hit a grand jackpot at the casino that night with my husband for a large amount of money. I hit over $10,000 in that jackpot, and it paid for my entire trip. And I was bawling because I was like, okay, not only is this book really what it's meant to be, but heaven took care of my trip. My trip at the same time. And it was pretty amazing. So
So the kids made you write that book during your trip, but then they kind of made it up for it, right?
I'd say they paid me back.
Which is so
Yeah.
I have Carrie and
It
Scott
was
saying,
it was a beautiful in my face sign that, what, this book was what it was meant to be. So yeah.
that's amazing, and it's so beautiful. Well, I just want to explain to everyone who's on here that this is not all um beautiful butterflies and
No,
dragonflies and unicorns and other things that our kids
no.
send us. It talks about Farah's life in the book, and her life has not been easy. In fact, it's been one of the most difficult lives that I think I've ever read about. And um, Farah, on the other hand, explains in her book that everything that she's gone through is her soul plan, first of all, but it's also something that has taught her something very important. I would love for you to explain to anyone who hasn't read the book a little bit about your own life, about becoming a psychic medium and how that was for you.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you guys, I've had this ability my whole life, and I never had any mentoring, and I never had any teaching, and I never had anybody embracing who I was. But what I did have was a lot of difficult moments. So, I grew up with a lot of physical abuse starting at age 5 with my first stepmom that I had. And I included some of that in there. And the foundation that she gave me was actually beautiful on a spiritual level. She taught me in moments how never to be a mom. She taught me to be strong. She taught me my self-worth. I'm thankful for her on a spiritual level for her lessons. And I, with my free will, was going to become nothing like her. And that was going to be part of the foundation, of me growing up. And then I talk in the book about, my ex-husband who beat me and spit on me for 17 years and told me how worthless I was. One of my daughters can tell you what color shirt he was wearing the last time he tried to strangle me in front of my kids. And again, some people would say, well, there's, a special place in hell for somebody like that. And the truth of it is, in soul planning, I wrote these people in my journey. They sat in my circle of soul plan, and I needed each and every one of them to do me a favor of growth. I needed them to grow me the most so that I could be strong enough to stand on my own 2 feet, really, and be able to share my abilities with no love and support on my journey on top of that. And I think it's really what's made me who I am today. If you guys have seen me talk, if you've been present for a reading, I'm a no BS kind of girl. I grew up no BS. I had to fight for every footstep that I took in this world. And so I understand the good old boy cloth too, of, like the skepticism and all of those things. And I think we kind of have to fight to prove ourselves as mediums each day, that we share our abilities. Every reading is a new challenge for, really providing proof that heaven is real. And that is so important to my heart, that when I approach my readings now too, I'm no BS with heaven. I'm like, okay, we're not doing the fluff, like give me specific things, and I have such a strict guideline with them, the same way I would with anybody else in life. So I think everything that I went through in life has made me the beautiful person I am today. I would go through it all over again if it meant that I could continue to help people. I was going to be meeting with people who were going to walk through abuse and tell them that they wrote it. I was going to be meeting with people who had terrible loss and tell them that they wrote it. How was I going to walk into a room with people that I'm meeting and trying to share heaven with if I had never been through anything myself? And I think that everything that I've been through really has laid such an amazing foundation of different examples that I can use to say, look, I get you. And I think that's important. It's nice to have somebody who's walked in your shoes. So I did talk about my daughter in the book as well. So when my daughter Skylar was 2 years old, she had a near drowning at my dad's house. And if I didn't know CPR on the human sense, she wouldn't be here today. But the truth of it is, her spiritual plan, she had not reached the growth that she intended, and I was able to bring her back. And so I do walk through that, story in there as well. And it was not an easy in the moment thing. She did come back beautiful, and she's still here today. But I think I needed to use some of those stories as examples in this book, because this book was going to be hard. And then I was going to bring you through the hard to show you the beauty. Um,
And you do it so well. And not only that, but I realized that you have experienced the same kinds of things that a lot of our parents have experienced, with being in the hospital several days, wondering if she was going to survive.
yeah,
Um,
they
Thinking
said she wouldn't. They said that she was not going to survive the night, and that if she did, she was going to be brain dead for the rest of her life.
and
Were the words that I was told. Yeah.
exactly, and just that whole passage of you refusing to let the
The
E-
officer. Yeah, when the officer came and I was giving her CPR in the backyard, he jumped across from me and said, "I'll take over." And I said, "No, you won't." And I continued to do CPR on my daughter. And I knew that what I was doing was working, and I didn't know him. And it
well,
was my child. It is my child. So
and
yeah.
she's your child, and she's doing really well. Is she one of your daughters who's already had children since then? Is that
Skylar, she has a 1-year-old little boy named Iris. He's absolutely beautiful.
she's doing really well, and
Yes.
thanks to your very quick thinking, but also I didn't really realize this until reading this, but Farah is also a healer, which I think kind of comes hand in hand, which is really nice. But anyway, I would love for you to just talk a little bit about the book itself and tell us about the different situations. But before we do, is it okay if I just read the back of the book? Is that okay with you?
I think you did. You
No.
did read the back when we
Oh,
started.
I did. Oh, I did when I started. I'm sorry. Yes, I read it already. I I didn't read it from the back of the book. I read it already though. So,
You read it off the screen. Yeah.
so what I'd like to do though now is to talk about these different situations when children transition. One of the things that you reinforce throughout the whole book is that everything that happens is a part of our soul plan. So
Yes.
um, we have to understand that these kids are happy, healthy, and whole, and that everything
Amazing.
that they have gone through was already written before they ever arrived here. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that for us. How
Yeah,
is
no, absolutely. Not only did they write it themselves, they wrote it with you. They wrote it with their parents. And, so that's the tricky thing about this, because child loss in the physical sense is so very difficult, but there's such a big purpose about that behind the scenes. And I will talk about that. And I wrote about it in the book. So, why do we come live a life? What are we coming here for? Why do we do this hard thing? And so I believe, and I'm going to use the G word, I'm going to use the word God, and you can throw that word out the window if you'd like and replace it with love or universe or whatever you want, right? But I believe that God makes us each in his light. Each and every one of us is created within God's light, or as a piece of God's light. And he makes us in very different levels of his light. And this body is my car, and my spirit, the driver within me, is what is made of that beautiful light. The essence of who you are, your spunk, your personality, all of those things, they come from heaven. And so as we exist in heaven, we have the ability to grow our light level to be closer to God's likeness, or to grow that light level to be a higher level of that light. Angels are some of the highest levels of light. Jesus is the highest level of light that's ever come to drive one of these cars. So we have the ability to grow our light level as well. So when we come here for this earthly journey, we come for that growth. And those people that write the hardest journeys are the most amazing spiritual bad asses. Sorry. That exist. So you parents that have written the hard and written to go through the muck, how much growth are you achieving in this? And your child has blessed you with that growth, and you're not bigger than their blueprint, and they're not bigger than yours. And that's what I try to remind you in that book. You have this purpose for this. It's all going to make sense. And I try to help you make sense of it now, so that you don't have to wait to get there. Back to your child, to have the ability to wrap your head around some of the knowledge that you need to kind of keep going. I think that, because I asked heaven, as they asked me to write this book, I'm like, how much information? They're like, all of it. I'm like, all of it? Like, why now? And I really got the message that life is getting to be extremely difficult in the way that the world has changed. And I think that people need more knowledge of spirit to have a better ability to keep going on their soul plans. Honestly.
Well, there's a question in the chat box from Michelle, and she's saying, "Hi, Farah. I have this book and I am reading it now. If we wrote these soul plans with our child, why is it so hard to battle the grief that comes with it? I know the grief is from love, but it doesn't make any sense on this side of heaven."
Yeah, so grief is an earthly thing. And so that battle is definitely an earthly thing, and you're correct. It is absolutely made of love. And why is it so hard? I guess with this book intention, I'm hoping to make it a little bit easier. I can't make it easy, guys. I mean, grief is made of love, and it's going to be hard, right? But finding new ways to place your energy and your focus on your grief is going to be the most profound healing journey that you find. Finding ways to honor your child so that you feel as though you're including them in your days, versus just focusing backwards on the loss and my child's not here since that day. finding ways to include them in your day, because as you start including them in everything that you do, even in your thoughts, not every moment, right? But I mean, in your intention, if you can start including your children in the things that you do, you're going to start feeling them more. And I really think that's part of the purpose of helping parents heal using mediums, and really trying to remind you that your kids are still here. They're just not with you in the physical sense. So if I can help you to create a soul bond with them, that actually I don't have to help you create it, you have that. But if I help create the knowledge of that soul bond that you have with them, then that's going to be the difference in feeling like that was the last day I had my child. I want you to feel like you still have your child. You're going to grieve the physical touch. You're going to grieve the physical, out loud laughter or voice. There's things that you're going to grieve, but what if you can grieve a little less by experiencing them more in your days? And that's important. Some people do little things, in honor of their children or foundations. We don't necessarily have to build a foundation in honor of our child in order to feel them, right? But any way that you can honor them in little moments, you're going to start feeling them more.
Beautiful. Well, I was going to ask you about your support group yourself. Tell me about your husband, about Jim. What does he think about all of this? And obviously, he missed out on some of his vacation in Aruba, but is he okay with you being this channel for all of us?
He
And
is. You know what? He just gives me the space to let me be me. And that is huge. There with my ex, he was extremely jealous. And when I say my ex was jealous, I mean to the point where I could not look out the passenger side window of the car one day because he thought I could possibly see a guy if I looked right. So Jim, Jim is the most like loving and he's protective at the same time, right? Like, so he's like, are you good? And I'm like, I'm good. And he's like, okay, then do you. So he checks, he checks in on me, and he's like, are you hanging in there? I'm like, yeah. And other than that, he gives me my freedom. He knows how profound this journey is for me. And honestly, you guys, Jim made this journey possible for me because he was the first person in my entire life that had shown me unconditional love outside of my children. And grandma said, when I told her that I had these abilities, she goes, oh, you needed to be loved as much as Jim would love you in order to share the beauty within you. And I've had these abilities my whole life, but when you're walking through turmoil and terrible every day, you're not sharing beauty. So I think it really got me to a place of beauty and calm, and he's really supportive. I mean, I will tell you, Jim, when we got together, believed that when you die, you're dead, you're in the ground, you're done, you're worm food, that's it. Let me just say that he does not believe that anymore. And he challenged me numerous times with my abilities, just one-on-one. And I made him cry in a bar one time, and that was the last time he's ever challenged me. So
is it too personal to explain that story with his friend about the dog and poop and about all of the other things that went on with Jim? I
no. So yeah, no, I love that story. So I mean, it is my foundation story of really introducing my abilities to him. So Jim and I were dating, and we were newly dating, and so he spent a lot of time at a motorcycle shop in downtown Mesa, and that's what he did before we were dating. And I would tell him, go hang out with your boys, like if you need a ride home, if you need to park your bike, let me know and I'll come get you. And eventually, like a few weeks in, he started taking me to the bike shop to meet the boys. And this is a man zone that I'm in. These are real bikers, we'll just put it that way. And so I'm hanging out in the bike shop, and there's this dog, this pit bull named Poop. And Kenny, his owner, who was my husband's best friend. My husband is Jim. Kenny was Jim's best friend. And I say was because Kenny's also now in spirit. He passed in a motorcycle accident years later. But he still is my husband's best friend. But at the time, Kenny was his best friend. He spent time there, and Poop would stare in the corner of this shop. And Kenny would go, damn, that dog freaks me out. He's always staring in the corner, and Jim and I are newly dating. I'm not saying anything. I'm not going to mess this relationship up. Jim's really good in bed. Sorry. So I was like, we're not going to mess this up. And so I didn't say anything, and then Jim took me back a few times again, and Poop was staring in the corner. The pit bull Poop was staring in the corner again. And Kenny turned around, and now, mind you, Jim knew nothing about this of me. We were just newly dating. I had never shared this with anybody freely like this. And Kenny turns around, he locks eyes with me, and he goes, "What the is that dog looking at?" There's an F word in there that I just skipped. And I said, "Well, there's a big dog in the corner. It's got like a long face and big ears. It looks like a German Shepherd." And I said, "And there's another one that looks like a coyote. I don't know what else it would be." And Kenny lost all the color in his face. And Jim, my then boyfriend, lost all the color in his face. They looked at each other, and Kenny goes, "Did you say something to her?" And Jim goes, "What would I say that for?" And Kenny went to a toolbox and he opened the bottom drawer and he pulled out 2 pictures, and he goes, "This is Jake, my German Shepherd." And he goes, "And this is Pebbles. She really is a coyote. I pulled her out of the desert. She was a pup and I found her abandoned by our pack." And he goes, "But they're dead." And I said, "Yeah, but they watch over you while you wrench on bikes in the motorcycle shop, and Poop sees them in the corner." And that was a defining moment that Jim kept me through. So um, it raised a lot of questions for him because, like I said, he thought that, when you pass away, you're done, you're fish food or you're whatever. And it progressed from there. So yeah.
Well, what I love about that story is that it not only proves that, of course, our loved ones live on, but also our fur babies live on. So
Pets. Pets
that's
are
so
absolutely in heaven. I don't want to go to heaven if they're not, but I can tell you, you don't have to worry about it. The pets are absolutely in heaven. So
so that's very exciting. There are lots of people who are saying goosebumps in the chat box. Sherry is saying, what practices do you use to further your personal growth and connection to those on the other side?
So me, myself, I don't have any formal practices. In fact, I think the first time that I showed up at Unity, beautiful Elizabeth was like, "Would you like to go in a separate room to meditate?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "You don't meditate?" I'm like, "I don't." So you guys, I really struggle with meditation. I can't shut my woman brain off. And so meditation is for me not relaxing. Although I will say that I have done some successful meditation with guided meditation, but it's not something I use every day. And then I realized that the truth is, I needed to throw every earthly practice out the window because everything that you have is available always. There's not a specific tool that you need to use. I don't use tarot cards. And let me just tell you, like I tried to find my footing through my teenage years as well, right? I tried tarot cards, I tried crystals, and I tried all the things. And I'm like, everything that I had my hands on, I'm like, nope, not this, nope, not this, nope, not this. Why? Because it's already there. You have, your spirit is within you, and it is so full of amazing strength and connection. And how do you tap into that connection? I think that I did like a teaching of like, how to connect. I mean, honestly, you guys, take your body, unzip it, set it over to the side, and listen. You don't have to worry about your heartbeat because you actually don't need your heart for connecting. You have this beautiful soul connection that is unbreakable within your body, and it is amazing, and it's boundless. Faith in that, getting rid of self-doubt is a huge thing. And, use your soul's voice. Your thoughts are your soul's voice speaking. Use that soul's voice communication back and forth. When you feel like you're pretending what your child is saying in your mind, you're hearing your child. And then human self-doubt, biggest obstacle, get out of your own way.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah.
So, okay, we have a lot of questions.
Yes.
Let's see. First of all, Meg is saying, can you give an example of how to include my son in my everyday? You were talking about this a little earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Elaborate.
When when your feet hit the floor in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, say your child's name and welcome him to your day. Good morning. Good morning, Michael. Good morning. Whatever your child's name is, let's go. Let's rock this day together. Say it in your mind or say it out loud. They can hear your thoughts. And as you start your day, when you're starting your day by inviting your child, versus waking up and going, "Oh, where's my coffee?" Because I need to just, sit and, and wake up a little bit, wake up and invite your kid to join you. Tell them today's going to be badass because we're in it. Get sassy with your kids, talk to your kids the way that you would when they're here. I mean, honestly, they hear you. Just including them simply like that, and tell them things in your mind. Honestly, they hear your thought voice to them always. Tell them what your plans are for the day. Ask them for their advice on things. Listen in your thoughts and your mind. That little voice in your head is not just you. And that's going to be important for you to understand. But yeah, it doesn't have to cost money to include them. You don't have to do like financial things. That's why I said not everybody has to start a foundation to honor their kid. I mean, I've heard so many different options for like parents. I love the idea of the birthday, when the mom tells me, well, I don't do birthday cake, but what I do is go to a birthday, I go to a bakery and I buy a birthday cake in honor of a child who shares the same birthday as my child in spirit. And then I leave a little note of love for that child and pay it forward and pay for that cake for that child. Cool idea, because you're blessing somebody else. And how amazing does that feel? So do little things, make little gestures in honor of your kids. Um,
That's a great idea, and I think it's beautiful, and it's true that so many of us do that with the birthday cakes as well as at Starbucks, just
I want to eat my own cake.
paying,
Sorry.
paying for the person behind us and paying it forward. So Mike is saying, how do our children guide our lives from heaven? How much input do they have on our choices and our paths?
So your children will guide you on your path to keep you on your soul plan intention. They won't sway so sometimes people go, well, wait, I asked my child, I pleaded with my child to not let this happen or to make this happen for me, and it didn't happen. It's because you didn't write it to happen that way. And so just know that they're going to support and love you through the journey that you wrote. And they absolutely have access to your blueprint. They have access to all knowledge in heaven as far as like what your intention is for your journey, for your growth. If you're having health struggles, if you're having health struggles and suddenly things clear up, your child may have had a hand in that because your soul plan didn't intend for that to go one step further. If you're having, health struggles and it's continuing, know that you're growing through those moments and your child is supporting and loving you through those moments of growth. And, so whatever it is, they're going to support your blueprint, but they're not bigger than your blueprint, just like you were not bigger than theirs in their lifetime, if that makes sense. So,
So, one of the things that you talk about in the book is that the people that are put into your life, even the ones that may be considered to be villains. So,
right,
obviously, your stepmother, obviously your ex-husband,
right,
those are people that are actually that might have been that probably were a part of our soul planning before we ever got.
absolutely.
So, what you're saying is that even in a situation of having a child pass by being shot, for instance, is something that is a part of our soul plan. It's one of many exit points. There could have been a different exit
Correct.
point, but this is the one that happened, and it was already decided before we ever came here. Is that
So
correct?
that is absolutely correct. So we sit around with that dynamic and we make this soul plan. And if your child sits in that circle and says, I've got one for you, and you're like, what do you got? And they're like, I'm going to graduate first, but it's going to be something epic, like it's not going to be a boring story. I'm coming up with something good. And here's somebody walking behind them saying, did you say that you're going to pass early and it's going to be something epic? And and as your child, like, yeah, it's going to be epic. I'm not a boring kid, so it's going to be a great story when I get back here. And that person is walking behind your family with love and saying, I'm willing to bless your family with that growth. And I'm willing to carry the burden of that in life because I want to know what it is to live a life through struggle. And so, and there is a story that I've told before, and I can tell it again, that really, and it's in the book actually, but to put it into perspective, a little hard when it's our child that we're talking about, because you're like, wait, there's no way that that I would have sat in heaven with that drunk driver that hit my child, or there's no way that I would have sat in heaven in a loving form with somebody who shot my kid. You know, but the truth of it is, so I went to here's an example. I went to a group reading, and I've told this story, Elizabeth, you've heard it. And there was a man that had his arms folded, and he did not want to be there. And at the end of going to 10 people in that group, he was not supposed to be part of the group. And I said, "Can I come to you?" And he said, "Give it your best shot." And I explained to him that I had 2 Vietnamese soldiers coming through for him. And I felt like one of them, he had taken their life with a knife and slit his throat. And the other one, he had stabbed him twice in the chest. And all he had was a pocket knife. And this man's mouth was dropped, and his eyes were wide open, and tears were falling on his face. And his wife's looking at him like, what? Because she had never heard the story. And I said, "Were you loading bombs onto planes in that war?" And he said, "How the F did you know that?" And I said, "Well, they're showing me that you did the same job that my husband did when my husband was in the Air Force, and my husband loaded bombs onto B-52s." And I said, "So I'm assuming you did something similar." And he goes, "Yes, he was loading bombs onto planes in that war, and he was not supposed to have to take lives." And as he told us the story, he said these 2 Vietnamese soldiers had broken onto base, just as I had said, and he had to take their life in hand-to-hand combat with a knife. And then he moved to this place of angry. And why? Why would they come through for me? You have moms and dads and, you know, and kids coming through for all these people. Why would they come through for me? And I said, "Because they love you." And he goes, "What do you mean they love me? I killed them." And he was just crying. And I said, "But as you wrote your blueprint in heaven that you were going to be a US soldier for our country, and you were going to go to that Vietnam conflict that everybody was writing about in heaven at that time frame, you wrote that you were going to be a hero for your country. How on earth were you going to be a hero for the United States of America if somebody didn't write to meet you there?" And I said, "The moment that you took those men's lives, you blessed their family with more love and growth than they ever knew they could carry. And they love you, and they watch over your family with love." And the guys even gave me validations of, you know, his family as well. You know, that did continue. I didn't include all that, but yeah, every soul plan is so beautifully intertwined, yet so difficult in the human sense to wrap our heads around.
That's beautiful. And Darlene is saying, when I learned about our blueprint, it was so hard for me to accept. But now it is one of the things that I learned about that actually gives me peace because it relieves me of the guilt that I sometimes feel, which I think that it's important for all of us to realize that we should not be submerged in guilt when our kids transition. What we should be is uplifted by them and then uplifted by all of the other kids that are with them because they want us to do something with what has just happened. They don't want us to just be sad for the rest
Sit
of our.
idle. Yeah.
But also, I Sherry is saying, I love that you are self-taught by spirit. Is soul planning something taught by you by those to you by those in heaven? So is it something that you learned through?
Yeah. So with my abilities, you guys, I have an all access pass to heaven. Let me just put it that way. And so I spent most of my foundation years really just challenging for the information that I would need to share it. I knew that if I was going to share this and I had no support and no, you know, no encouragement from anybody, and let me just say from anybody at all, I knew that if I was going to share these abilities, I was going to need to stand on my own 2 feet with knowledge that would answer the questions that were going to be thrown at me. You got to understand, I'm not just speaking to beautiful people like you who are interested in spirit, right? There's people who are very, you know, maybe they were brought up with a very strict religious upbringing. And let me just say this, I never want to challenge their faith or belief. Their faith and belief is important to me. But if somebody does have a question or a challenge for me, I really wanted the answers. So I always jokingly say, like, I'm not book smart, I didn't go to college, but I'm heaven smart. And that was the one thing that my brain had capacity for. And so I really wanted to understand, like, what's behind this? Like, how am I supposed to explain this? If they ask me this, if they ask me that. So I spent a lot of time. I have not listened to my radio in my vehicle for probably the last 20 years of my life, unless my kids were in the car. Sometimes we did play it with them because I spend my time in my car talking to heaven, just me and heaven. It's really the only time that I have. So I spend a lot of time learning and understanding. And then, with my ability comes a lot of knowledge of that. I think that our human mind is meant to erase all of this knowledge so that life is hard. I was going to need this knowledge to make it through life.
Well, Irene has a question, so Irene, go ahead and ask
Sure.
Farah.
Yeah, Farah, I'd love if you can address just a little bit. So many parents struggle, and I know I find this when I talk to parents as a caring listener about the way their children pass and if they've suffered, and they really can't get past, well, was my child afraid? Were they in pain? Were they frightened when they left their body? And I'd love if you could spend a little time and talk about that.
So because there can be trauma with passing, right? So there can be body trauma with passing. Let's face it, right? There's all different types of body trauma that there can be. I cannot say that your child didn't feel a thing, body wise in the part, depending on their transition and, how it began or whatever. But I can tell you that their spirit is never touched by that. And typically when there's an impact and those type of things that your child already knows that it's their graduation moment, most times I see that they just jump out of their body and spirit before that impact happens. They watch it from a place of spirit because they're like, screw that. I already know that's going to be terrible, so honestly, when it comes to their passing, their transition, no matter what it is, the millisecond of that impact or the millisecond of that overdose or the millisecond of that whatever, they're outside of their body watching everything from a place of pure love. So let's just say, like, I've done a lot of readings where there's been maybe an overdose and the child wasn't found for 2 to 3 days or something, because they're an older, like an young adult child or something. I mean, I want you guys to picture them in heaven going, oh, here comes mom. Oh crap. Oh, she can't get in the door. Oh yeah, I locked that. Yep. Nope. She's going to have to get through the window. Honestly, they're so light about it in heaven and they're loving and watching you through it. But for them, it's so light. This is their story about how they got back to heaven. So if it's an epic story, you just picture your kid going, sit the F down. Guess how I got back here, and that's just how I picture them. Cause that's how they are. They're sassy about it. Like, let me just say, like, the F's still fly in heaven. So
Well, Brenda is saying, should we leave them alone somewhat as they have work to do there? Or is it okay to keep on trying to get in touch with them?
you're never holding your child back from anything in heaven. I can tell you that right now. They can be in more than one place at a time. Your child can be in heaven enjoying a beautiful, great social gathering and still watching over you in one state. Maybe dad's in another state because we're split or whatever it is, or they've got siblings in another area. They can be in multiple places at a time, never held back from their work in heaven. And they do work in heaven. They do work. They get to take their life experience. So whatever your child's life experience was, they can use that life experience to really help guide others in the earthly sense who may be walking through what they were. Because most spirits in heaven maybe don't have that life experience here on earth. So your child does have the ability, like, let's say your child had an addiction, right? And there's a lot of spirits who've not lived the addicted life, in life on an earthly plane. So your child who has that beautiful knowledge and experience can be that voice in that ear for that addict that's meant to get to rehab because maybe it's not their time and their soul plan, and so they really do comfort them and bring them, peace and knowledge in work as well, but they can still be with you at the same time as they're working here on earth. So yeah, you're not holding them back from anything. They're boundless, you guys.
Okay, and along that same line, Lisa is asking, hi, Farah. I met you at the Helping Parents Heal conference. We are so thankful for this group. My question is, if they reincarnate, will we see them again? My son continues to send us so many signs.
So reincarnation is one thing that a lot of parents ask me about because a lot of parents worry, am I going to see my child again? What if they reincarnate before I come back? I say it takes about 100 years in earthly timing to plan the next life. So, unless you plan on living another 100 years, you're going to see them again is what I'm saying. But at the same time, you may get back to heaven and go, you know what? I'm done with that earthly thing. And so I love that you want to go back, but I'm sitting this one out and I'm going to watch from here. You have the choice to go back and join them again on another journey, or or not. And that's the beauty of heaven. So we do definitely have the ability to live multiple lives. We're not made to live multiple lives. There's spirits in heaven who have never lived a life at all. So again, you guys are spiritual badasses because you are here doing it and you're doing the hard, and that's not easy. But yeah, know that when it comes to reincarnation, I mean, you'll have the ability to join them again if you want, I mean, every now and then I would say if can get a life whipped up really quick and come back, but it's very rare that that happens because there's a lot of soul planning that comes into lifetimes. And you guys, the time that your child transitioned to the time that you joined them, I don't care if you lived another 80 years after your child transitioned, it's a blink of an eye in heaven's timing. So it really is. And so it does take some time in our earthly time to create that new soul plan.
Well, I would really like to be able to hear a little bit. I know that you had to learn all of this on your own. I know that your grandmother has the gift as well, but other than that, nobody really in your family that you know of. Is that correct?
So grandma didn't really have the gift. Grandma had a little bit of intuition, I would say. She knew when her horse was failing in the field one time, things like that. So grandma had some intuition. I would say that, yeah, I mean, a couple of my girls, so my daughter Skylar that had the NDE experience, she's definitely got some gifts. I will never forget when her school counselor called me and told me Skylar's talking about a little boy in the classroom, and she says he's a ghost and he's bothering her in class. And I said, "Oh, I told her to tell him to leave her alone." And this, I think that the school psychologist or whatever she was a little concerned. She's like, "Oh, you don't think that that's a problem?" And I'm like, "Oh no, because not everybody understands spirit, right?" And so when Skylar came back from her NDE, she sees ghosts in full form, as solid as you and I, and she'll see them in the way that they are when they transitioned or passed. And then she has worked with a little bit of like communicating with spirit or whatever, but my girls are still, even though they're young adults, there's still growth. My daughter Shayla has been talking to me recently about connections that she's been making, and she's really excited, and she's been bouncing a lot of stuff off me, because she's trying to get an understanding of it. So I think that there's a little bit of that in each of my girls. But everybody's soul plan is different, and everybody's light level within them is different too. So it's just a matter of their intention for that they set out with their blueprint. So yeah.
Well, I think that it's something that you can turn on or turn off. I mean, obviously, you've never turned off the gift yourself, but I think that during certain periods of our lives, we may want to be focusing on something else and focusing on studies, focusing on a job that we're doing or something else. And then at other periods of time, obviously, after having a child pass, I think that that's the major time that everyone wants to be able to connect with spirit. So um,
Yeah.
we might not have that push the way that you did to
When
connect.
I get interrupted in my regular everyday life, you guys, because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and all of those things. I'm a grandma. When I go to the grocery store, I know that there's a TV show out there where, they'd go into grocery stores with a film crew. That's what people don't realize, right? And then that medium would make, like connections in the store and the hair place or whatever, so people see me in the grocery store and they're thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to get a reading." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, can you pass me that can of beans?" Or whatever it is, because I'm shopping at that time. I will say that it does happen that I get a push. If I get a push, it's a life-saving message, you guys. Everybody would love to hear from their loved one from me every moment that I live and walk out my doors. But the truth of it is, if it is in my personal time, heaven's really respectful of my time and space. But if it's a life-saving need because somebody's literally on the verge of trying to join, their child in heaven or trying to join their spouse in heaven or whatever it is, heaven knows that information. And if I get a push, it's usually interrupting me for those needs. And I'm always available for that. So
Wonderful. And I just want to tell everyone again that Farah has been a huge part of helping parents heal from the very beginning. And in
yeah.
fact, probably a couple years after Helping Parents Heal was founded. And she has come to do gallery readings at Unity of Phoenix, and it's always one of the most exciting things to have her come. But I also want to just tell you all that I feel very grateful that she has dedicated this book to Helping Parents Heal to me,
Yeah.
Green, and to Mark Ireland. It makes me feel so grateful. And not only that, but her first $1,000 that she earned from this book, she gave it back to Helping Parents Heal, which is just incredible. So I want you all to know that she is incredibly selfless. She will do she will take her days off, which are very, very rare during the month, and come to speak to parents at Helping Parents Heal. And she actually, during the conference, was wandering around the halls giving people readings at the conference. And some of
Yes.
those were completely life-changing for the people that were, I think, probably every single one of them. But I think you were told that you needed to be speaking to these people. And so
Yeah.
we're really, really helping them at that time. And I am so grateful for that. I just feel that it's so wonderful that you were able to do this book in such a short time and that
Yeah, I wrote it in like 3 months, which was the craziest thing.
and
And
that you
let me just tell you, it didn't just interrupt my Aruba trip. I think heaven also took out my sand rail so that we couldn't go to the sand dunes for 2 trips. I ended up literally writing in the small amount of time that I had off, and I got it done, and heaven paved the way for it. So it makes my heart happy. And honestly, like when I was thinking of who I wanted to dedicate it to, I sat down and I thought about who I wanted to dedicate it to, and it was so simple because I love Helping Parents Heal. The foundation is just it's truly healing based. You guys, these guys inspire you to keep your focus on your kids being around. And I felt like a lot of grief groups that I've seen really focus on simply the loss. And there can be such a tunnel vision in the loss focus that can really pull you down even further. And this is the one organization that I've seen that lifts, and not just Elizabeth and Irene. I mean, and all of the people that present and all of that. You guys, as parents, I have seen you lift one another. When I was at that conference, you guys, there was a mom there that was shaking and crying in the hallways. And I walked up to her and I said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "I can't get my buttons on my lanyard." And I said, "Well, come here with me, honey. Like, let's sit you down. Let's do this." And my heart sank as she handed me 4 buttons because I knew what that meant. And I I was really compassionate towards her, but I also knew that I couldn't hold her in the space that another parent could hold her in at this moment. And when I grabbed a couple ladies that were here to the conference from Australia, I think it's Australia. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. um, they said, "We've got her." And I have the most beautiful picture of that mama showing her buttons to those mamas and just being present and lifting her. They could have just crumbled with her, and they held her up with strength even though they were broken. And that is what I see in Helping Parents Heal, and I just love that so much. That strength, that lift from all of you guys. Everybody's going to have a bad day, everybody's going to have a down day. But if you have people in your space, find your people, right? And these are your people. And that's this organization has my heart. And I love the dads group because I'm a bit of a tomboy, born and raised. And so, I relate to the dads well as well. And I probably cuss more than they do. But yeah.
well, they love you too. And I must say that all of the parents that I've ever met that have been with you for readings just adore you. In fact, uh, I just want to tell you that in the chat box right now, Elena is saying, Farah is the first person who gave me a hope when I had a reading with her a few months after my son transitioned, as well as all of these other people who are saying, thank you, Farah. Yes to what you were saying. Yes, indeed, this is so freaking true. So true. And then Darlene is saying, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Fara Gibson truly is my saving grace. And it's true that once someone has a reading with you, which is kind of difficult to do, so don't expect to have a reading with Farah tomorrow, for instance, unfortunately. But once someone does, it changes, it's life
The
changing.
change. the change is so, you know, when I opened my Fara Gibson psychic medium page on Facebook, you know, I would see everybody was really coming to that page brand new and they were very doom and gloom. But one by one, as I did readings for a lot, and you guys, I started that page with nobody on it, right? Now it's got like over 37,000 people. But one by one, you could see the difference in people who had had readings and people who hadn't. And the people who had readings with me, who were that doom and gloom before, were like lifting them as well. And that's what I love about that page. Also, it's why when I saw your foundation, the lifting is what I was looking for, lifting others up and really just, you know, focusing on healing people and not focusing. You'll never see me share stuff on my psychic page that's like, oh, they're gone, you know, like, you know, there's a lot of like different pictures out there that can represent grief. But I try to represent the side of grief that is hope. And that's and faith.
And the collateral beauty that exists on this journey, which we do see every single day. And just
Yeah,
being able to help another parent allows us to see that collateral beauty. So,
yeah.
Teresa's
So
saying, my
the
husband is,
book, you guys, it's in real Farah talk. It's not, and there's probably a few cuss words in it. But I felt like writing it in a way that wouldn't be some oogie boogie crap to memorize and all of those things. It is just as plain as me talking to you right now through that entire book and just really explaining and helping you to find that knowledge with real talk. I think that that's an important thing on this journey because it's hard to read between the lines sometimes. And I don't think you have to read between the lines through any of this book. So
well, tell us about the book. It's been #1 in many categories over the past 2
yeah, you know, I was like crying the other day because it was literally #1 in death and grief. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, of course that may not last for more than a day, but just to see it there, like it made my heart so happy. I'm like, and not because I'm selling books, it's reaching hearts that it's, you know, it's getting to people. I didn't write this book to be a millionaire, you guys. I mean, I don't make a fortune off my books. I wrote this book out of love, just to really try to help share that knowledge and to bring peace, you know, through knowledge to you guys. Because I think I hear a lot of people say there's not a handbook out there for when you lose a child, you know, and I've heard that said so many times. And although this may not be a step by step, it was really intended to be a great handbook, a great start, and a really good foundation for people who have already, you guys, a lot of you have a knowledge of spirit, to deepen that knowledge and to give you some answers that you might be missing. I mean, that's my intent. You know, I don't want to, and again, if there's any of it that challenges your faith and beliefs, throw that part out the window. I never want to challenge that for anybody. So
well, and this,
it's titled How Do I Live Life When My Child Is in Heaven? I just saw somebody asking that. So
oh, good. Thank you. Yes, we
yeah,
should.
yeah, no, we're good. And it's funny because I actually met Elizabeth at the Floating Lotus yoga studio. So,
So this is a floating lotus, if anybody,
yeah, and I didn't realize that until after we put it on there, but I was like, wow, that's kind of cool.
which is
So
beautiful. So this has been just so wonderful. Again, yeah, what's the name of the book? So you have the book right here. I will be putting it on this talk as well. For those of you who live in the Phoenix area, we are very, very fortunate because Farah is going to be coming to speak in person this month on the 19th. We can't overwhelm our beautiful space that we meet in, which is Unity of Phoenix. But please try to join us if you'd like to, because she does gallery readings at these meetings, and it's always really amazing.
I
So,
will be doing readings there. And I know I always break the rules at Unity. Sorry.
I'll try not to break too many rules. But we are very excited about having Farah there. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Farah, for coming to speak about your book. We are just so grateful for the book. We're grateful for you and
Thank you.
feel
I'm
so,
loving the feedback on it, you guys. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything that anybody has questions on that book or any honest feedback that they need to send me, send it my way. Like I would love the feedback on it. So, all right.
and I just have to say it's on the 19th because people are asking, and
Oh,
it's from 1 to 3. So Unity of Phoenix, the 19th at from 1 to 3 if you're here.
I'll
And
be there.
yes, Farah will be there. I'll be there. And a lot of other people will be there as well. And we
But
will,
let's not break the fire code this time.
right, but we're going to Zoom it as well. So if you aren't able to attend in person, then you're welcome to join us by Zoom. So you'll be able to see Farah as she's speaking to all of us. And yes, so Yelena is asking that. Yes, it will be on Zoom. And we always ask everyone to unmute and say thank you
Yay.
for the evening. So if you
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Farah.
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you so
So
much.
much.
Thank you
That's
so
so
much.
cute.
Thank you so much.
Fabulous.
You're amazing.
Good night,
Oh, you
everybody.
guys are amazing too. Oh, thank
We
you.
love you, Farah.
God
love you
bless.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Amen.
That.
you.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night.
Bravo.